the most important thing to remember about passive income, though, is what Larry King said. Do you know what passive income is? It's called work. Hey, welcome back to Building Wealth with Wheeler. Dr. Wheeler, that is. Again, happy for you guys to be back here. We've gone over some great stuff in the past in terms of entrepreneurship, side hustles. Today we're going to look at what are we doing, though? How do we start from ground zero? Ground zero, what does that mean? It means $0. I'm broke. Got no money. How do I start it off? So strap in, get your notepad out, and we're going to take a look at how we go from broke to making it rain. Thanks for being with us. Here we go. So listen, how do you start from scratch? That's it, right? So in terms of money, have I done that? Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna pull out a whole, the Barack Obama story. I went dumpster diving, or back when everybody was dumpster diving cool, or I walked uphill both ways in the snow. My parents made a decent amount of money. I was never hungry growing up as a kid, but I did have to go in the Army to sustain myself. I'll tell you that. And I remember first day, as an officer. I went as an officer out of Mississippi State, and we went to Fort Benning. And there was a problem with the pay in the 90s in the Army and the pay, right? I always think, when I tell the story, I always think about that movie, Glory. Thank you. The movie Glory, where Denzel Washington's like, tear it up, tear up the pay stub, right? I didn't get to tear up the pay stub because they didn't give us any. So you think about that. Here we are in the United States effort. You're just starting out. Now, a dollar to our name. Now, a misconception is for officers, the meals are not paid for. That has to come out of salary. So does uniform. Everything has to come out of your salary. So if you're enlisted, it's a little bit different. But as an officer, no, there's no, you got to go buy your own food. You got to go buy your own clothes. They did provide the room, though. I'm not going to, complain about that. But anyway, there's a problem with the pay. We had not been paid for 3 months. Now, and 3 months is a long time when you only get paid once a month. And you're only making, I think, if I look back now, it's like $25,000 a year or something like that, maybe even less, gross. Thank you. So 3 months of not being paid, that's a long way, especially in training. You start to get hungry after a while, and beanie weenies only go so far. So the whole time, the major, the guy running the place, kept telling us, hey, they're going to fix payroll. They're fixing payroll. But at the same point, they would say, hey, if you ever see anything wrong, raise a red flag. Okay? So I was just something nice to say, I think, for them to, that they put it out there. So this one kid, and we'll change the names, but let's just call him Slow Mac. We're in a room, bunch of new butter bar lieutenants, probably 400 of us, and the General of Base is giving us some speech. I mean, this guy's a hardcore, Army, Airborne, Rangers, Special Forces. If he looks at you wrong, I think he would kill you, right? No nonsense type of guy. He gets up and gives what a normal 4-star general would give as far as a speech. Hey, hope it works out for you guys. Work hard. If there's ever an issue, let me know. No, he don't really want to know, right? So what does Slow Mac do? He raises his hand. Now, for those of us who knew Slow Mac, we knew this was not, what was about to go down was not going to be good. So everybody just kind of parted the waves. If you were sitting next to Slow Mac, you kind of did one of these. He stood up and goes, hey, sir, apparently there's a problem with the pay, and we haven't been paid for 3 months. So just kind of wondering where we're at with that. Now, you can see the major's face, mad, shock, anger, all at once, looking like he could kill Slow Mac. The generals get this confused look on his face, kind of grins. He goes, well, we need a couple bucks or something? Like he could care less. And to which Slow Mac said, oh, well, no, my parents are helping me out. And so the general's like, all right, well, he looked over to the side of the throwaway. Hey, you looking at that? And then General, hey, we just told him. The major stood up. We just told him to raise a red flag. That's all he's doing. Yeah, we got it under control, sir. We got it under control. General said, yeah, okay, whatever. And he trots off. Man, you could not hear a pin drop in that auditorium. That major sprinted. I think he made it. That was the quickest 40-yard dash upstairs I've ever seen. In maybe 2 seconds, he was from stage into Slow Mac's face, chewing his ass about why, what is happening? Are you broke? Are you out of money? And so, no, sir, I got something. He goes, and why is the first effing person you tell a 5-star or a 4-star general that you got pay problems? What's wrong with you? So needless to say, the rest of IOBC did not go well for Slow Mac. So anyway, I know what it feels like to start from zero. I guess is why I'm telling you that. So it's just a different time back then. The Army was, you should be happy to work there kind of thing. And nowadays, if an employer doesn't pay you, I don't think you show up. But let's look at it, right? Again, let's look at it and come from the step of, hey, I want to start my own thing. I want to get out there and do my own business. Starting from ground zero, where do I go? So the first thing I would tell you, and this may seem oversimplistic, but I'm just trying to be real with a lot of you fellas and girls out there, or ladies, get a job. Get a job. If you're sitting there at home thinking about starting your own business and you don't have a penny to your name, go get a job. If your parents are going to front you, hey, bully for you. There's nothing wrong with that. No shame in that. I mean, let's be honest, right? Donald Trump talks about how great he is and how many billions he has, but it's like he's bragging about hitting a home run when he was born on third base. He came from rich parents. His dad gave him a $10 million loan in the early 80s in the S&L loan scandal when he could buy New York properties for pennies on a dollar. You didn't have to be a rocket scientist to make money back then if you had $10 million. So a lot of you're not in that position. But I am saying if you are in that position, if your parents can help you out, it's not a bad way to start. There's no shame in it. I mean, I'm not saying get on Facebook and brag to all your friends about how great you are. Have some humility about the thing. But if you don't have any money, you got a choice. Go get a job or go ask, your relatives for money. But that's where you need to start. You know what? And it's sad because I see it even today. I'm not just saying to the younger generation, the 20-somethings-year-olds. I would say every week I talk to people, boomers, in their early 60s, that guess what they're doing? They're still asking their parents for money. Now, it may not be in the case of, hey, they just say, hey, straight up, give me, with a handout, give me $5, dad or mom or whatever. But in terms when I talk about their retirement plan, in terms when I run through the numbers with these 60-year-olds and say, hey, we're coming up short. Based on how you want to live and what you want to spend, really coming up short. You're not going to be able to retire in 4 or 5 years the way you want. You know what these people say to me? They lean in real close and they go, well, mom's not doing good. I'm like, okay, here it comes, right? I'm not wishing her ill will, but she's, well on her way out. She's okay now. We just don't know when she's going to die, but we expect to get a chunk of change from mom or from dad when he passes. Every week. It's unbelievable to me that after 60 years on this planet, you're still relying on your mom and dad. Do you want to be that person? Do you want to be that person 40 years from now going, well, my plan, right? So I tell them, so your plan, just to recap, is for your parents to die and give you money. And they're like, well, yes, in a defeated way. Yeah, that's what it is. I plan on mom and dad to die, and I plan on them leaving me money. What's the problem with that? Couple of problems. For years, let me draw you a picture. For those of you who go, well, what's the problem with that? Here's the problem with that. It's horrible, right? It's horrible. First of all, what if your mom and dad don't die? Okay? In the way, everybody's going to die, right? But what if they don't die when you want them to? People are living longer now, right? Guess what happens when I walk into a room and ask a bunch of 80-year-olds when do we want to die? They don't jump right up and say, oh, tomorrow I'm ready to go see Jesus today. No, they want to live longer. They're having a good time. Here's a funny stat for you. You know the number one population where STDs are growing? Some of you might be thinking, oh, where are we going with this, Wheeler? I'm just trying to prove a point. What generation has the number one STD growth? Outbreak of STDs. Old people, retirement homes, nothing but a big old booty fest up in retirement homes, right? Why? Because they really know about condoms and STDs when they were married, and now it's a free-for-all. My point is they're living life at 80 and 90 like some of you 20-year-olds are, okay? So you cannot plan on these 80 or 90-year-olds just going, okay, it's my time to die. We're not in Logan's Run. The thing ain't turning red on their hand, and they're going to go off willingly and die and leave you a bunch of money. So even if that is your plan, and a horrible plan it is, they may use all the money before they die, okay? Which they very well should do. It's their money, all right? So that's the big problem. They may not die when you want them to. Here's the other problem. What kind of Christmas is that? Hey, Mom, hey, Dad, how you feeling? You okay? Why do you want to go through that math about, oh, I'd be sad if they left, but I'd be happy if they left because then I get money? It's just a mind screw I don't even want to think about. So please don't put yourself in that position, but don't beat yourself up either as a young person asking for money now to get yourself out of that position. It's perfectly fine. Don't be that 60-year-old coming to me saying, hey, well, my retirement plan is for mom and dad to kick it. That's horrible. So enough of that. I mean, it was the last story is one lady, a couple about younger than me, 40-something years, 41 years old, and started talking about how the retirement that she needs to have and how she's entitled. And I quickly did the math and said, hey, that's just not a possibility for you based on what you're earning and what you're going to make. And again, she leans in and says, well, my mom's going to leave me a lot of money. Okay, is she near death and hospice? Oh, no, she's 65 years old and living well, but, you never know. What kind of Dateline special is that waiting to happen? I don't want to be interviewed on Dateline talking about, well, she did talk about her mom was doing okay and she needed that money. Anyway, please don't do that. Do something to go get some money. If your parents give you the money, invest it wisely and use it to build up your business. And just remember, okay, well, you tell me to get a job, but I thought I was supposed to, start doing something I like doing. Yeah, well, that's why they call it a job. That's why they call it work, because if everybody liked doing it, it wouldn't be called work. You got to go do something that you don't like to do so you can do something you want to do later on. You can build your own business, but you got to get started, and that's why we talked about earlier in the podcast about, starting a side hustle first while you have a quote-unquote real job, whatever that is, whatever someone's willing to pay you to do and you can make money doing it, I suggest doing it. That's how you get started from ground zero. There is no magic investment formula where grandma and grandpa give you $100 and I magically turn that into $10,000 in 6 months or overnight. Or I go get some great real estate investment that's going to passively pay you income while you sit at home and play the Xbox. It does not exist. Okay, I'm not even talking to 20-year-olds. I'm talking to 60-year-olds out there too. Please stop coming to me and asking me how I turn $500 into $5 million over 2 years. It doesn't happen legally. All right. So there you go. Now, what do? We got the job. Where do we go? Right. First, we got to build up some cash. We got to have an emergency fund, especially if you're in your own business. One good number to remember is $1,000. Right. If you don't know anything else and you don't do a bunch of math, at least have $1,000 in the bank. Why? That covers things like a blown tire, okay? Like your shoes gave out on you and you need to go buy a new pair of shoes, or you need a new laptop, cheap laptop. But $1,000 is that emergency fund for you and your business to step up when something goes wrong, right? Now, once you've got the $1,000 in place, we want to look at 3 months. 3 months of bills being paid, 3 months of personal bills being paid, and then 3 months also of operating expenses. Those two things combined if you're doing your own business or side hustle. So what do I mean? So food, groceries, rent, let's say all that's $1,500, all right? Well, then you need $4,500 in the bank as emergency cash. Why? In case you lose your job, you've got 3 months you could sustain your lifestyle. Now, on top of that $4,500, look at your side hustle. What does it take you to operate your side hustle? If you're doing DoorDash, how much are you paying in gas on that, and car insurance and maintenance and all of that, and marketing? So let's say you're spending $1,000 a month on side hustle to keep your business. So then that's $3,000. So you need your $3,000 plus your $4,500. So that means you need $7,500 in emergency cash. Now, what does that do for you? That instantly, statistically, puts you better off than every other person out there starting their own business. If you remember earlier, we talked about the high failure rate. 88% of new businesses fail. You've just reduced that now. You just greatly reduced that. Why? Because you can sustain yourself in bad times, in case clients stop buying, in case COVID hits, right? Things that are out of your control, right? You may be the best business person ever. You may make the best snow cone this side of the Mississippi, but if lockdown prevents anybody from going and enjoying your tasty, delicious snow cone, then you ain't going to be selling it, right? So you got to have money to sustain yourself. Then once you've got 3 months, guess what you do next? Yeah, 6 months. Well, that's not exciting. No, I know. But we're talking statistically speaking what's going to give you the best mode of success. So again, if you're spending $1,000 a month in living expenses, that's $6,000. If you're spending $500 a month in operating expenses for your side hustles, that's $3,000. That's a total of $9,000 as an example. Okay. So we first want to start with $1,000. Then we want 3 months of living expenses and operating expenses. And then we want 6 months of living expenses and operating expenses. And I guarantee you, if you do that, you're going to be very far ahead of the game. You're going to be ahead of your competitors, by the way, because you're going to have competitors that are starting up too, being a needle in your side, right? Where Joey's got snow cones down the street, and they say they like his bubblegum snow cone versus my unicorn snow cone. Well, if times hit that are tough and Joey can't sustain himself for a month, you ain't got to worry about Joey no more, right? Cash is king. You want to try and build up to get to a point where you got 6 months of sustainable cash. Now, where do we put that? There's different vehicles to do. I would say probably the best place to put it, if you're not knowing anything else, is a money market share account in a bank somewhere, right, or a brokerage account, and just have it sitting there. Chances are it's not going to go down. I can't legally say it never goes down, but it doesn't. So you're going to earn 1.5, 2, 3 points on that money as interest rates go up. It's a good way to kind of keep up with inflation, and you're not just earning 0.0005 in a normal savings account. So you kind of want to look at money market shares and park it there. Once you get more robust and we have more investment vehicles at our disposal, then you can spread it around a little bit, and you can kind of look at cash value and life insurance products and other brokerage accounts and things of that nature. But for the most part, you kind of want to park it in kind of a business savings account that lets you put it in money market shares. Okay, now we've got that going. We got the emergency cash set up. Now, for those of you who have a real job, we want to look at that 401k, right? And we haven't talked about it in the past, but again, you've got a real job. Most 401ks match. Most of them, most generic plans have, you put in 6%, they will match 3%. That is free money. You don't know how many people I talk to who, one, don't know that the company has a match, and two, don't even contribute. That means they're leaving free money out there. If I put $20 on the street, I don't care who it is. I'm gonna leave it at 20. A millionaire will walk by that $20. A millionaire is going to stop and pick up that $20. If you don't think, legally, you want to look around, see if it belongs to anybody. Anybody be nice and go, hey, is this yours? Is this yours? But let's assume it's nobody's. It's 20 free dollars, first come, first serve. I don't care who you are. If you're a millionaire, you're going to stop. You're going to pick up that $20. Okay? Here we're talking about people who make maybe 50 grand a year, 20 grand a year, 100 grand a year, and they're not picking up $500, $3,000 sitting on the street. Companies just trying to give it to them and they're not taking it. Why? Because they're like, well, I want to spend that money on myself. Well, by the time you factor in taxes in, you're really not taking that much away from yourself. So what I mean by that? Well, let's say you make, let's just use round numbers. Let's say you make 100 grand. Okay, and let's say your company matches, you put in $6,000 or $6,000, your company matches $3,000. And you're thinking, well, I don't want to, that $6,000 I would spend myself. It would be better if I want to go buy baseball cards and watch movies and eat out. I'm going to use that $6,000 for that. Okay, well, you haven't paid taxes on that $6,000 yet. So by the time you pay taxes on that, let's say you're normal at $100,000, you're at a 22% tax bracket. So now you just took 20% out of that. So now that went $2,000 right away. So now you really only have about $4,000. An effective tax rate, Rob, you want to get into it. Now you only got $35,000 really to spend. Okay, so really $2,500 you didn't even see anyway, as opposed to putting it away in your 401k, and that entire $6,000 is going to grow for you tax deferred over the next 20, 30 years, right, until you need it. So you're really not going to miss it a whole lot, is my point. So it's just amazing to me how many people don't know that their company what the company match is and who do not take advantage of free money. That is literally your company. That same company you're complaining about, that same company who says screws you over all the time, is sitting there handing you free money. And all they're asking you to do, some of them have a 100% vesting right from the get-go, meaning we'll give you this 3% if you leave us tomorrow, you still get what we gave you, right? But most of them are saying, hey, we just want you to stay here a couple years and work, and even then you're going to get some of this free money back. They're sitting there trying to hand you free money. I'm begging you, please pick it up, take it, snag it, and go. So there, we want to do that. Now, once you've taken advantage of your 401k up to the maximum that they match, then we want to go back and look at a Roth IRA. For most of you in your lower tax brackets, again, at a side hustle, a Roth IRA is going to make sense. Versus if you're making 200 grand and you're trying to start a side hustle, then maybe your traditional IRA makes sense because that's going to be tax deferred. But again, to doing the math for the masses out there, you want to max out your Roth IRA, then you want to go start max out your 401k at work, and then start your Roth IRA, and you can put up to $6,000 into that thing until you're 50, and then you can put up to $7,000. So then you want to do that. And then you could put it in different mutual funds. It's typically what you would probably want to do. And you probably want to speak to a professional to kind of help you with that. That's the last thing you probably want to consider, though, is what type of investments. First, you want to make sure you've got the right buckets in place. And by buckets, I mean your emergency cash bucket, your 401k bucket if you got a real job. And if you don't, what do you have, right? You probably have a SEP IRA and self-employment, or we skip right to a Roth IRA to begin with. And then you want to have your Roth IRA, and then you can kind of figure out what mutual funds to put that in. For most people, it's mutual funds. For most people, you divvy it up. You want to have some international, some growth stock, some blue chip, some bonds. I mean, it really depends on the individual. So I don't want to get too much in the weeds in that because it's different for everybody on how old you are and what risk you need to take. So don't get in the weeds on that, right? You just want to remember you want to diversify your money when it's in there and have someone help you with that. There's a lot of tools for that. But we want to have the 401k and then the Roth. Now, we've done that and we got more money than you know, you can put up to $19,500 into that 401k. You can put up $6,000 into your Roth. If you're over 50, you can put up closer to $20,000 into your 401k, and then $7,000 in your Roth. So let's just pretend that you've maxed out your Roth, right, and your 401k. Well, the next thing we need to look at then is and for you younger people, this is going to be really, really hard, right? You're going to roll your eyes. You may shut off the podcast. It's long-term care. Like, oh my God, what is that? It's when I'm old, right? I know it's extremely hard to think about being 85 when you're 21. But guess what? You're going to get there. God willing, you're going to be 81, 85, 90. And for you younger ones out there that are 21, 22, 25 now, chances are you're going to live to 100, 110. But guess what you're not going to be able to do at 100 and 110? The same stuff you can do at 21, right? Your body's just going to start shutting down. I know modern medical science, right? With the brain transplant, we could probably live another 200-300 years, Ricky Bobby style, right? Yeah, we're not there yet. You just got to bank that your body's going to start shutting down. You're going to need someone to help you. No one's going to help you for free. You're going to have to pay for that. And the way you do that is get a long-term care plan. And there's a lot of different ones out there. I'm not going to get into that, but you need to start looking at that. And probably your 20s is maybe a bit early for that, but I'm saying if you filled up every other bucket, you filled up your 401k bucket, your emergency cash bucket, your Roth IRA bucket. The next bucket is a long-term care plan. And for most of you, that bucket starts to get filled around 30 or 40. If you wait till you're 50, it's going to be a lot more expensive. It's a lot cheaper the younger you are. And if you can afford it, bully for you in your 20s. If you can't, don't worry about it. It's still very affordable in your 30s and early 40s. But that's when you certainly want to start looking at that, and don't wait till later. Don't wait till you need it to buy it. I've seen that time and time again. 65, 60-year-old females especially will come in without a long-term care plan and start wanting one. I'm like, well, the point is mute now. I mean, you're pretty much going to have to pay for it. An insurance company is not going to give a plan they think they're going to turn around and have to immediately pay out one. Okay, that's bad business. I'm not going to give you $300,000 in long-term care plan if I think you're going to need this in 2 years and only charge you $3,000 for it. That's stupid. No one's going to do that. Don't think insurance companies are stupid. They don't have millions and billions of dollars by being stupid, okay? So please don't let that be your plan. I'm not saying run out and buy long-term care today. It really depends on how old you are. I am saying that if you're at 45, I'll just use that number. Could be different for everybody. But if you're at 45 and not even considered long-term care or what that's going to look like for you, today's your day. Today's your great getting up day. Look at long-term care. So that's another bucket you would fill up. All right. After you've done that, then we can go to that little bad boy I talked about, the LERP. I talked about in an earlier podcast, so I won't go too much more into it. But again, it's a nice way. It is an insurance product, but it is a nice way to build up a cash value, give you liquidity when you need it, and you pull it out tax-free when you want. It is tax-free growth, right, that you can use after you've filled up every other bucket, and if that makes sense for you. And it also protects you in certain instances in terms of not only your life, but in lawsuits. So, doctors like them, lawyers like them, any business owner that deals with everyday common people. No offense to the common people, but the common people like to sue people. That's why I live in Mississippi. You know why most lawsuits? Here's a side for you. You know why most lawsuits start in Mississippi? Lawsuits against tobacco, booze, guns, all that. You know why they start in Mississippi? Because it's a very lawsuit-friendly state, and they get jurors. It's a poor state. And what do poor jurors like to do? They like to stick it to the man. I don't blame them, but they stick it to the man. And so Mississippi has a great history of awarding high dollar lawsuits, right? They don't also necessarily always get paid out, but that's where you hear the big billion-dollar lawsuit payouts coming out of Mississippi. So that's why it probably makes sense to try and protect your money. When you get rich, for those of you, you're not there yet, maybe, but when you do get there, it's no longer about growing my wealth. It's no longer about what ROI do I get. Can I get a 10 versus a 12? It's about wealth protection, because ideally your business will be growing at the rate you want it to. Your business is your growth engine. Now you want to take those dollars and sack it away where someone can't steal it from you, right? Where you won't lose it. So there's no need for you to take this huge business risk, right? You remember, 1 in 10 succeed, 9 in 10 fail. That's a risk. You're already taking risk as a business owner. Why do you want to risk that money that you sweated over, you bled over, you worried over, your parents, your family, your children helped you over? Why do you want to take that mass of money that you accumulated and then turn around and risk it right in the market when you don't have to, right? Why do you want to hedge funds and, trying to get 15, 20% returns on real estate ventures? Why do you want to do that, right? Makes no sense to me. You want to protect that wealth. So anyway, you want to look at the LERP. And then the last thing would be an annuity. Now, annuity comes off as a 4-letter word. I get there. Some people probably call it, annuity. They're not all bad. It does make sense for some people. But again, you want to make sure you have your other buckets filled up. And again, just to keep things short, I would say when you get to that point, you don't want to put any more than 25 to 40% of your overall liquid net worth. Don't count your home. I don't care about your $800 to $2 million home. Liquid net worth, you don't want to put any more than 25 to 40% into an annuity. There's reasons for that, but basically it's liquidity and the high cost of annuities. Annuities typically cost 2 to 4% in fees year after year, and it's very hard to get your money back out if you need to in an emergency. I'm not saying they're all bad. I'm not saying everybody doesn't need one. I'm saying for the majority of people out there starting off, you don't need one. That's something to think about later in life. Another rule of thumb, you probably don't need to be thinking about an annuity if you're less than 40 years old. I would lean toward less than 50, but there's some bell ringers out there. So I don't want you to say, I don't want 50 to be a hardcore number, but I would say, less than 40, you don't need to be looking at an annuity. And again, what does this boil down to? I want to forget about the real estate. Let me forget. This is another very popular one. I remember this kid knocked on this I say kid, I think he was mid-20s. He was looking to buy a real estate condo. I'm like, how long are you going to live? He's looking to be my neighbor. I'm like, are you moving here? When you think about moving, all I gas, right? I would never live here. It's not for me. I'm going to rent this place out. I'm going to invest. I'm an investor, right? So he's too good to live there at 25, and he's going to rent this place out, right? It's harder than you think. It's not just for those of you who are thinking about real estate agent, it's not just a matter of, hey, I go buy a place and, their rent will cover the insurance, the loan, taxes and all that. Ideally, yes, that's how it's supposed to work out. But really, you got to get your hands dirty for those things to work, okay? I have an uncle, he's dead now, passed on, but he made a rule of thumb of buying a property every year for 40 years, and he amassed property that way. But he didn't hire a management company. Management companies cost money. He would go do the plumbing. If the toilet was clogged, he would go flush it out. If a person didn't pay their rent, he would go get it, or have the sheriff's office go get it. My point is there's work to do. So for those cool cats out there who think they can just passively buy a real estate investment property and have it just miraculously dump money on them time and time again, doesn't work that way. Guess what happens? Tenants sometimes don't pay their rent, especially in economic downturn times. Especially now, people are going to start losing their jobs. And guess what they do when they lose their jobs? They don't pay the rent, right? And there's protection for those people who don't pay the rent. If you didn't pay attention to COVID, go back and look now that the government said, hey, because you lost your job, you don't have to pay the rent for a while. Who got stuck? The landlord. So now you as a landlord got stuck for not only paying your mortgage, which you probably have, but now the mortgage on the rental property that you didn't plan on. Okay, so I'm not saying real estate property is not a bad is a bad investment. I'm just saying it ain't a simple one as everybody makes it out to be. It's a great one to have if you can fit it in your portfolio, and if you approach it the right way, absolutely. But if you have the mindset of, hey, I'm just going to buy this property and have somebody manage it for me, and everything's just going to miraculously work out, I'm telling you now, save your money. Don't do it. All right. So anyway, it gets back to, again, making money. And whoever said that, money doesn't buy happiness, you heard the joke. They didn't have any, okay? I'm not saying it buys complete happiness, but it sure as hell don't hurt, okay? Even for people who read the Bible, right? If you read the Bible, I don't remember, even the Bible, people prayed about being, can you make me prosperous? Or the Lord making them prosperous and their future generations prosperous. There's nothing wrong with having money. I'm not saying it is the end all be all to have happiness. You got to have some morals. You got to have a moral compass in place, but it certainly doesn't hurt. And as far as the Bible goes, I don't remember anybody in there. I don't remember one story with all the parables in there. I don't remember one story where someone prayed to be broke. Okay? If that's you, more power to you, but I don't remember it. So please keep that in mind when we're talking about, saving money and how to make it as an entrepreneur. So now let's look at a little bit of data. We talked about only 1 in 4 people have retirement savings. So you're like, well, what's their plan? I talked about this. Is everybody leaving them money? Some of these people have the plan that the parents are going to die and they're going to leave them money. Okay, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. That's going to be a lot of Dateline episodes. Okay, Ma and Pa Kettle were really healthy, and all of a sudden they disappeared. And then Junior and Sis over here bought a Ferrari. All right, you don't want to be on Dateline. Okay, don't make that be you. But I think a lot of that is, the self-employed think either one, they're going to sell their business and that's going to get it done for them. And we talked about that. There's no guarantee that your business is going to sell. And the other plan is inheritance, which again, boomers have a lot of money. It's sitting out there, but I promise you, they're living longer than you think they're going to live. And they're not going to leave you as much as they think you're going to leave you. And oh, by the way, they may skip you altogether and leave it to the grandbabies. Woo! Wouldn't that be fun, huh? Now you got to go to your kids to ask for money that your parents left them. You don't want to be that person. Here's a stat here that the Employee Benefit Research Institute estimates that there's a deficit equal to $3.68 trillion in retirement. That means they estimate that all the people out there, there's $3.68 trillion that should be there that's not. And so then when you look around and wonder why we're looking at a recession breathing down our throat, people don't have money. If they don't have money in retirement savings, they probably don't have money saved up anywhere. That's why. I'm always reminded of laugh about Dave Chappelle, and he does this skit about he always talk about, hey, my parents did just well enough for us to grow up poor around white people. And he would talk about, he would complain to his dad about being poor, and his dad would get mad and say, hey, poor is a mindset. We are not poor. We are broke. And of course, to which Dave Chappelle says, I don't care what we are, poor, broke, call it what it is. I'm tired of having no money, right? So that's what I'm trying to help you guys with is not having any money. So look at doing that. Look at saving it up the way I'm telling you to. One other thing I want to talk about here real quick before we go is don't over-insure. I see too many people buying too much insurance. And why do they do it? Because honestly, there's great insurance salesmen out there that make it look really, really good. They make it seem like you get a lot of this money in a death benefit. But usually it's a death benefit, and usually it's term. And if you're young and you're single and you don't have any kids, what do you need it for? Even if you do have kids. I had a couple the other day I talked to. They both had good jobs. They were getting term through work. So an insurance guy even trying to sell it to them. The insurance company is getting paid. And for a low amount of money, something around $20 a month, each kid gets, a couple $100,000 in death benefit. And I asked him, well, why does your 7-year-old and 2-year-old, why do they need a $100,000 death benefit? Meaning, and I hate to say it, it's a morbid conversation. It means that if their 2-year-old, 7-year-old die, the parents get $100,000. Well, is your 2-year-old, 7-year-old bringing in $100,000 into the household now? Well, no. What do you need it for? Why are you just? And yeah, I get it. It's only $40 a month, but that's $40 a month. That's $40 a month to be used for something else. Okay, you don't need life insurance on your kids. Very rarely do you need it. Yeah, okay, there's funeral expenses, but if you want to go that route, then get the $10,000 plan. Okay, get the funeral insurance plan. Don't get the whole kit and caboodle. You don't need it. Again, if you're starting your own business, every nickel counts. Why? Because we want to be profitable. That $40 times 12, that's almost $500 a year, right? Could you do something else for $500 a year, right? Probably, than insurance. I remember I got my best friend from high school growing up. He bought cash balance policies, permanent policies, which are far more expensive than term policy on his kids. And he winds up going bankrupt, okay? Term policies are very much more cheaper or a lot cheaper than permanent policies. Just an example, let's say a $100,000 term policy costs you $25 in a term policy. Well, $100,000 in a permanent policy could cost $200. a month, right? There's a big difference there. And so you just don't need it on your kid. I see it too many times, and that's why I tell you guys now, if you're out there and you got young ones, what insurance is supposed to be for is to take care of any debt that you have if you die prematurely. And there's different ways to calculate that. You can calculate up how much you have in mortgage and bills and living expenses. You can do 10 times your salary. But basically, you want to try and not leave a hole for your loved ones, and that's what it's for. And you typically want to probably pay for around 5 or 10 years what you can afford for them to continue life and reset themselves, because you're going to be a big hole when you leave. That's what it's for. It's not some investment to be used early on to make sure if your kids die, you get money. So really take a look at that. There's a few special cases where it makes sense, but you really want to take a look at that. You do need insurance, though, for if you're self-employed. We talked about lawsuits. We talked about that there is insurance against lawsuits. It's called errors and omissions insurance. You probably need that. We talked about LERPs for that. That would help you as well. We also need auto and home insurance. A lot of mistakes I see there are people don't have enough, right? They typically go for the cheaper. And that's all, I don't blame you, that's all the TV commercials sell you is cheap insurance. Well, you get what you pay for, okay? And here's the problem. When housing prices go up, let's say you own your own home, and you got insured when your home was worth $200,000, and all of a sudden now it's worth $400,000, but you didn't change your home insurance policy, and your home burns down, they're only going to give you $200,000, but you won't be able to replace it because it's now worth $400,000. I know this friend of mine, they have a neighbor, big $800,000 home, burned to half burned, half not. I'm like, how long has that house been burned like that? They said, for about 1.5 years now. Why don't they fix it? They said, well, they were underinsured. They never upped their policy. So now they got a house sitting there burned, hoping that it's going to sell, right? And then they'll be able to move on. So you want to make sure you have the right amount of insurance. And if you got kids out there and you're starting your own business and you want to give them a car, I get it here in Dallas. It's kind of hard to get around on DART. You get them a hoopty, okay? Meaning $5,000 car, $2,000 car, it's already paid for. And then you just get the liability insurance on it. They're gonna wreck it, okay? Don't be going out there and getting them a leased Beamer or a great, Mercedes, whatever. Get them a hoopty that's 5-6 years old. They'll get them around, and then when they wreck it, you can total it out, and then you can have that discussion with your children about, hey, you need to earn enough money to pay for your own car now, okay? That's when I want to talk about insurance. I mean, my parents got me a Trans Am when I was in high school. Worst decision of their life. I think I wrecked that thing 3 times. Don't do that. The last thing we want to talk about here real quick, or close to the end, is bettering yourself. Always continue your education. There's a lot of programs out there in companies that will pay for your MBA. So if you're going through college, MBAs are very popular. Don't think you got to go straight to get your MBA and go pay for it yourself. A lot of organizations out there will do it for you. That's what happened for me. GE paid for my MBA. They paid for a lot of my PhD. A lot of companies will do that for you. And then residual income. Okay, we'll wrap it up when we talk about residual income. I'm kind of running out of time here. Residual income meaning, hey, this thing is going to keep paying for itself, and I don't have to keep working to get it. I don't keep having to sell a car every day. This car is going to sell itself. That's the mecca, right? That's what you want. Okay, you want someone paying where you don't have to keep selling it every day, right? This is why everybody likes real estate, because the renter is paying that real estate every month. You don't have to keep saying, hey, pay your rent. There's a contract. They got to pay the rent, okay? And that's residual income coming in. It's easier said than done. That's why you see these streaming services pop up. Everybody wants to sell you a service that you maybe not necessarily need, like a Havoc. The HVAC guy wants to sell you a service. Well, you probably don't need that, right? He's probably charging $100 a month, and he probably only needs to come out once a year. Another great one, example, the porn industry. They got all these streaming services. Why do you think they charge you so little, right? Charge you $1 or $2, not that I know. But why do you think they charge you so little? Because they know that if they charge you a little, you'll forget about it. It'll be out there, and the masses are out there, and it's just a streaming service that's going to keep building and building. It's $4 billion industry for a reason, okay? So it's residual income. That's what you want to look at. And if you're looking to build your business, you want to try and get that business some kind of way to where you build up a residual income. And so if you're in a service industry, that's a little easier than if you're in a product-focused industry, right? If you're selling widgets, it's hard to have a residual income on serving widgets unless that widget has to be replaced ever so often. So really look at that. I mean, social influencers are great at that. Their residual income is what? Advertising. You want those advertisers to keep paying you money for people to keep watching you. So the most important thing to remember about passive income, though, is what Larry King said. Do you know what passive income is? It's called work. Okay, so please remember that, right? Nothing's out there worth anything is free or easy. Even passive income, it still requires work. You still got to pay attention to it. I hope you guys do that. So listen, thanks for listening to this podcast. You may not agree with everything I say. You may not like everything I have to say. But even if you don't like it, even if you don't agree with it, I promise you this. If you take what I tell you and apply it, you will definitely like the results. So hope this helps. Can't wait to see you guys next time. Take care. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you tune in next week when we look at some ways technology can help us improve our wealth portfolio.